Hi everyone. As you can see from the email, we have PD next Wednesday on what we call press materials, and I know a lot of you don't have a lot of background on them, so I kind of wanted to take about 3 or 4 minutes here to discuss them just so you had the 1,000-foot view of kind of the purpose and how they fit in and what they are before you actually step foot in the training. So I'll do my best I can to make it quick. Hopefully you can hang in there with me because there's just a lot of information. But first off, April and I attended a training last summer, I think in June, for instructional coaches and principals, and we happened to run across these materials by another group of teachers that was there, and we went over and looked at them and we thought, oh, it's very teacher friendly. It was something that we thought would be very easy to implement and just be a resource for us that was already there that we wouldn't have to go find. And so it kind of reminds me of what we've done with our kindergarten and first grade Haggerty materials for phonemic awareness, where it's a spiral notebook. It's separated very conveniently into the 5 components of literacy. So if your class is struggling in fluency or vocabulary or comprehension, it actually has scripted lessons that are already made for you that you don't have to go find. So what we liked about it is instead of adding more work, we felt like it actually could save more work in the long run because of the fact that you don't have to go look for these class-wide interventions. So right now we're working on creating that awesome core and going over how much time we're putting into each area of the core, and this is kind of the next step up of once you've created that solid core, if your kids aren't getting it, what do you do next? And that's where the press materials come in. It's something to have that you can have at your fingertips that is research-based and aligns with those standards. So hopefully, I'm sure we're going to learn a ton more than we even need to know. Our heads will probably spin from how much the publisher always comes and talks about. But hopefully what we do is we can have these 2 weeks of training, 2 sessions of training on press that we can talk together and say this is how it fits, this is how it doesn't, this is stuff we want to use of it, this is stuff we don't, and then that way we can have something ready to go for those class-wide interventions. So if we're continuing to sit at 50% proficient, what can we do differently instead of just continuing to push through the basal? Let's fit a little bit of this here and a little bit of there from our press materials, and it's already all done for you and very teacher friendly to use. So that's kind of a little background on the press and how we saw it and found it. Now, how we purchased it basically, because we always thought it was cool but didn't have the money. Because we have a high free and reduced population, we get some more Title II funds now, and those we found out we had those, and those had to be used. So we found out we could even afford the training with it. So it was kind of nice that April and I both thought it was a great resource, but we knew probably we didn't have the funding for it, but being able to have that has been fantastic. So that's kind of where the funding of that came from. So the second thing and final thing, it doesn't really have to do with press, so if you have any more questions on press, feel free to ask, but hopefully you understand kind of a little bit of its role and intent and how it fits in with what we're doing. But second thing I wanted to talk about was just as we're working in our PLCs, I want to thank you. I've been so impressed with how the effort and the professionalism and just how much awesome work you guys have done in those and how it's moving us forward really well. The one thing that when you focus on data and things like that is sometimes we have the tendency to over-assess compared to instruct, and so there's that fine line between when do we need to assess and when is it just assessing to assess. So one quote that I actually have it on a sticky note on my computer for the last 2 weeks, is the only valid reason to assess is to determine what is next. And so I'm actually going to be eliciting some support from April on this, which I don't know if I've even talked to her about or she knows about, but really looking at each grade, what we assess and what we use it for. And if we don't use it for anything, maybe that's one that we say that's not really worth our time to do. Because when we do assess, we want it to make it worth it, so we can say, now that we've assessed, we know where to go next. And so I know that can become a frustrating thing if we're doing too much and not enough of this side, and so juggling that and finding that fine line is where I'd love to get to, and I know all of you do too. So once again, I'm super impressed with our PLC work. It's just making sure that we can continue to get dialed in with that happy median and finding good and easy resources like hopefully these press materials and our Haggerty ones that we've already found for phonemic awareness. Just continuing to find those good resources that make it easy. Always remembering that it's people, not the programs, but when you have those resources just ready there for you, it makes it much easier for our people to be able to work together and come through on those. So once again, hopefully you stuck with me for that whole 4 minutes and 45 seconds, but hopefully that gives a better general overview of what press materials are and kind of what we want to do moving forward in PLC. Thanks.